Hey everyone, Greg Cazillo, Cazillo.com. I have a couple of images today that I'm going to edit over to black and white for you. Then we're going to give you some tips on actually printing them into black and white. I have a color image here, and I'm going to talk about that one also from these images on that Epson 2000 that they sent over a while back. So we're going to talk about that today. First, I'll give you a little overview of my images. These are the unedited images, and this is the first shot that I did in my black and white. Let's see how close I get, because typically they're not going to be the same. And then there was the final print that I made of that one. So let's try it again and see how it goes. First thing I like to do after I click over to black and white is play with my temperature sliders. And what I'm looking for is a little bit more detail in the sky right now, because I do want that sky to not just be this white blob. I want a little bit more detail there. So I'm going to play with my sliders to get a little bit more contrast there. It's not going to be a whole lot until I come down here to my tone curve, which is already on strong. I'm actually going to back it down to medium, and then down here to my black and white sliders. Now, first one I'm going to play with is that sky, and drag that down and get a little bit more contrast in that area. And see, my blue sliders have come up, which is a good thing. Now I can also come back up here to my lights and darken them a little bit, which if you're looking at my histogram there, you can see it shifting that entire histogram over. We can then come over here and play with these darks. So sometimes I like to edit in solo mode, but black and whites can usually, I like to try and turn that solo mode off, and then I'll play with each individual slider and kind of hit the two of these in order to make a real nice black and white. So right now we have the shadows are a little blocky, so we need to open them up a little bit, and our greens and yellows need to be adjusted just a little bit. Basically, what I'm looking at is, you know, I know my colors are green, I know my leaves are green, and so I have an idea of my different colors. And a lot of times what I also do is flip back and forth in between a color image and a black and white image, so that I can see what those colors actually are, and then I can go back and slide them. You can use this guy right here, which gives you pinpoint accuracy on that color. Either way works out just fine, and so I'm actually I want to open that up a little bit because I want just a little bit more contrast there. And again, going back to your general sliders. And so we're getting pretty close to what I want. I think the sky could just be a touch darker, so I think I might add a little gradient up in here, and not much. It's only going to be maybe half a stop or something like that would probably be enough to darken it up. And that's pretty good. Now, compared to the other one that I had, they're actually pretty close. They're pretty close. My leaves, if you look over here on the right side, right here, leaves are a little bit darker in this one. Sky a little bit darker in this one also. But overall, looks really good. Oh, you know what? There's another difference right there. If you look, you can see detail there. No detail there. So that means that I need to open that back up in this image. In this, whoops. Went too far. In this one, I need to open that back up. So I'm going to grab that color. Actually, what is that color? That color is red. Where is that? That is right there. So let's do it this way. There we go. Now we can see that stripe again. And something like that isn't always going to be important, but sometimes it might be. It might be important, and see that actually changed some things on here. So I'm going to go back and edit that again just to get it about where I think is going to work. There we go. Okay, so we have a good gradation from the lights all the way to the darks, and overall good color. This guy right here, the sergeant, he's completely in shadow, not what we're going to be able to do about him, but I like being able to see that little bit of detail, that little stripe right there. I think it just adds a little bit of interest and shows that they're in a Class A uniform rather than just a suit. So that's the first one. This one is our other. And it's interesting, this image, when we go to black and white, it's actually pretty boring and flat. And so we definitely need to come back and play with it. Now, some people like to use a tone curve here, others don't. I'm a fan of it, and others just prefer to use the contrast sliders. I like a little bit more control over my individual colors. That's when I come down here and I start playing with those. This time I might open it up, lighten it a little bit there. And doesn't need a whole lot of work, but I think it's pretty close. No, wow, we did a lot different in that one. But that's okay, still looks good. Let me brighten my monitor a little bit. That actually does make a difference, by the way. If you're editing in a dark room or something like that, try to turn up the brightness on your monitor, because you do see it completely different. When you're on a PC, typically those your monitors don't change a lot, but on a Mac it does, because the auto brightness is a default thing. So definitely think about that if you're editing on a Mac. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So let's talk about printing. The first thing that I thought I would mention is that I actually took this image in color and I printed it from the PC. When you're on the PC with the same driver, with an Epson 2000 driver, the latest one is, I'm not sure the version, but this is only like not that old of a driver that it was installed, so it's pretty recent. They're actually different in between the Mac and the PC. So what I did was I printed this image directly from the PC, and I chose the color mode as grayscale, and that's the only thing that I did. I took the color image and just printed it directly as grayscale, and I got a really nice, flat, boring black and white image. That option is not there on the Mac, amazingly enough. Why? I don't know. I'm going to put an inquiry in and with Epson, see if I can figure out why that is. But from what I can tell, that option is not here, and I've gone through this a couple times, and so you can't just go right over to black and white, because it knows that you've already selected your color profile and your color management over there, and so that's it. That's your only option. But printing this version, there we go here, printing this version looks really good. That's my final print, and so I thought I would talk about that a little bit with you. A couple of things that we need to deal with. Let me get out of here and there. Okay, so first, make sure you're choosing the right profile for your paper. That's the primary thing that you need to worry about, is the paper profile. If you have a profile, if you have a different kind of paper, make sure that you're buying a paper that you can get a profile for. Or make sure that there is a profile for your printer and that paper combination. If you're using an Epson paper with an Epson ink on an Epson printer, there's going to be drivers for it, and there's also going to be profiles for it. If you have, say, an HP paper on an Epson, you might not be able to find a profile. You might have to create your own. So I strongly suggest staying inside of that same setup, in that same architecture, that same, Epson family for everything you're doing. You're going to end up with a better result. Or go with a company like LexJet, whose paper and profiles they make for each individual printer, and so you're going to end up with a really good end result when you're working with a better company like that. All right, so that's the big thing, choosing that media type matte. I was printing on that ultra premium presentation matte. We're going to hit print, and we're going to choose that printer. All right, so we have oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. The first time that I printed the other image, I actually chose the wrong, there it is. I actually chose the wrong paper, the wrong media type inside of this box. Okay, you have to do it twice. And so this is what I got. It's pretty flat, especially down in here. The image itself is very flat and boring, and there isn't a lot of contrast down in here. The shadows are very murky and deep, and you just don't see the detail. Versus this one, you can see a lot more detail, and it makes a huge difference. So there they are side by side. Hopefully you can see the difference there in those. Looks a huge difference when you choose all the right media type and all the right settings. You also will want to choose grayscale here if you're on the PC. I'm going to work on that answer, and I'll add it as a comment or something like that in the future for the Mac people. Quality, definitely want to choose that quality, and then no color adjustment since you're setting that over here in Lightroom. Sheet paper, which is what I'm going with. The letter, not doing borderless, and then I would hit OK, and it will print. One other thing that happened today is, for some reason, the second print that I did, I'm guessing I didn't fan the paper out well enough. It actually grabbed a few sheets of paper, like 3 or 4 or 5 sheets of paper. And what ended up happening is, hopefully you can see this okay, it actually ended up with some lines in the paper. And those lines are from actually the print head going back and forth. And actually, I can actually feel where those lines were hitting and where the print head was scraping along the top edge of the paper. So I ended up doing a cleaning and a couple things, and it's working out fine, but still not sure why it grabbed all those sheets. I'm guessing I just didn't fan them out and separate them well enough. I just grabbed a few out of the pack and threw them into the sheet feeder. And so hopefully learn from that. And as you see there at the bottom, there's some ink there that was left over from another one, and so definitely a problem there. So be careful of that when you're printing. Most of the time, I usually just throw one sheet in at a time. This time I didn't because I knew I was going to print a bunch, and so that's what ended up happening. Other than that, I think that is about it. Make sure that you're setting them right. You have a good black and white. All I can say is try a few. Print a couple of them. See if it's actually what you want, because that first one might not be right on, and you might need a little bit of an adjustment, or the printer might be a little off, or your screen might be a little off, especially if you don't calibrate it. So any questions or anything, I'd love to answer them. And so I think that is it. So print your pictures. Thanks, guys. Keep shooting.